What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the same. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs and leaders. Today is no different. I have Mark Emond of Demand Spring. And Mark, before I formally introduce you, I always like to point out other episodes people should check out of the podcast. So this is part of the top agency series I had on Ian Garlic. Ian Garlic runs videocasestory.com, and he talks about how he creates amazing customer stories. And what's interesting is he has a background. His dad was an entrepreneur, Mark, and his dad had a restaurant, and they had live dolphins in that restaurant. And it was kind of fascinating to hear. And I would think that's odd in general because he's from Orlando, but actually that restaurant was in Wisconsin, which makes it even crazier. So check that episode out. There's another one I did with Adi Clevitt. Adi Clevitt specializes in helping companies create SOPs. So Adi and I kind of geeked out on our top productivity tools, tech stack. And so that was a really good one. That was a fun one to listen to with Adi and her company. So check those out and many more on InspiredInsider.com. And this episode is brought to you by Rise25. At Rise25, we help businesses give to and connect to their Dream 100 relationships. And how do we do that? We actually do that by helping you run your podcast. We're an easy button for a company to launch and run a podcast. We do the strategy, the accountability, and the full execution for the podcast. And Mark, we kind of call ourselves the magic elves that run in the background to make it look easy for the company so they could create great content, develop great relationships, and that's all they have to do. So for me, the number one thing in my life is relationships, and I'm always looking at ways to give to my best relationships. I've found no better way over the past decade to profile the people and companies I most admire and share with the world what they're working on. So if you've thought about podcasting, you should. If you have questions, you can go to rise25.com. I have lots of episodes for free that people can check out on any question imaginable that I've had to answer about podcasting. So I'm excited to introduce Mark Emond. He's founder and executive chair of Demand Spring, and Demand Spring is an organization who works with B2B marketers in building strategies, content, and technology stacks that drives, most importantly, Mark, right, top line results. And they work with organizations ranging from early stage to even Fortune 500 organizations. Some of their past clients include companies like Fidelity, LogMeIn, Staples, Vidyard, and many, many more. Previously, he actually worked in corporate at companies like IBM and Cognos, and we'll talk about some of the experiences there. He also serves, if you were watching the video, you can see some basketball, a basketball hoop over his shoulder and a basketball over his shoulder that's signed. Serves as player and coach development with West Ottawa Basketball and is head coach for the Capital Region's female team. And that was one of them at the Ontario Summer Games. So, Mark, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Jeremy. It's a delight to be on and looking forward to chatting with you.
So I want you to start off by talking about Demand Spring and what you do, but I'm sure we're going to talk some basketball as well and how the leadership of the company bleeds into sports. But talk about Demand Spring.
Yeah, so I founded the company, as you mentioned. I had been in the on the client side for 17 years in the technology industry, in marketing, really growing the demand function in organizations with organizations like Corel and company Watchfire that got bought by IBM. And then I went to Cognos, which was Canada's largest software company. I'm based in Ottawa, Canada, in our nation's capital. I had been with Cognos for a few years, and we had really done some amazing things in creating much better alignment with sales and becoming much more consequential to growing the top line of the business. And also using marketing automation. We were a very early adopter of marketing automation technology. We were Eloqua's first $1 million client. In 2007, we had about 1,400 inbound nurture streams running, which still by today's standard is pretty outstanding. And then we got bought by IBM. We were IBM's biggest acquisition at the time, I think second still behind Red Hat. And worked at IBM for about 4 years and really had the itch, though, to start my own company, to bring what we had done at Cognos in becoming a much more strategic marketing organization, much more consequential to the top line, in building a strong sales and marketing relationship to other B2B organizations. And I also felt at the time that in working on the client side, I'd worked with some great agencies at the time, but what they really were great at was brand. They made their money on brand. Their most experienced strategic people were on the brand side. And I found that there was a gap on the demand side of marketing. And so I felt like if I could create an organization that had experienced strategic demand marketers that could really help grow pipeline and revenue and help the CMO meet their commitments to growing pipeline and revenue, that we could have something that would add value in the marketplace. And so that's what we did back in 2012. We created Demand Spring, stepped out on the ledge to become an entrepreneur, and it's been a good story. The company is still going very strong here in 2023. As you mentioned, we've worked with a number of great B2B brands, from high growth scale up organizations to a number of Fortune 500 brands that we still work with today in the technology industry, financial services, life sciences, consulting services, the education industry, and others.
Mark, it's funny because you saw a gap, right? And we'll talk about stepping onto that ledge and what you did, but I think we should spend the next 3 hours talking about all 1,400 inbound nurture streams. But what were some of the things that you saw at that point? Some of those nurture streams, those inbound streams that you then used and helped companies with?
Well, I think overall, back when I started Demand Spring, if we go back to the 2000s and the early 2010s, there was really a shift going on in marketing. Historically, B2B marketing was really about building brand and providing sales support, and largely driven by great technology advancements like marketing automation platforms. Marketers, back then and still today, were much more instrumented. They understood the engagement, the behavior, and could really personalize marketing strategies at scale using technology. So it was really a transformational time to be able to understand where somebody might be at in their buyer journey or their client life cycle, and be able to personalize communication at scale to them and content at scale. And that was something that we'd never really been able to do, right? If you look historically at B2B marketing, B2B marketers would place ads in publications like Business Week or Inc. magazine, for example, or Fortune or Forbes. And you'd be able to, reasonably target personas based on readership and subscription data, but you never knew, and you could never really target where somebody might be at in a buyer journey. Are they actively searching for a solution like you're offering or not? And if they were actively searching, where are they in the buyer journey? And what marketing technology platforms and analytics enabled us to do was to really precisely identify the personas, the buying groups, the stage of the buyer journey or client lifecycle they're at, and really tune at scale the type of content you put in front of them. And so that was, what we did with our nurture streams back then. And really the premise for what Demand Spring still does today is strategy and technology that enables really precise targeting at scale to be able to drive down the cost of customer acquisition and the contribution that marketing is making to the buyer journey.
Yeah, so I could see that. You place an ad in Inc. and Forbes or Fortune, and you get some response, but you're not sure where they're at, and you don't necessarily specifically target. The targeting maybe wasn't there. Can you give an example of what you mean by, okay, I put something out there and now I know exactly where they are in the buyer journey? I guess I'm picturing you put something, a piece of content specifically out there, so only people who would be in that segment of that, journey would actually click and consume it. But I could be totally off on that. What would be an example of, okay, we put this out there and this showed us they were in this part of the buyer journey and where it went from there?
Sure. Yeah, no, you're pretty bang on, actually, Jeremy. There's Driven by in one of the services we offer that organizations have really in the last 10 years invested in is buyer journey research, really understanding through primary research and tertiary research and data analysis the types of content that people engage in different stages of their buyer journey. What appeals to them when they're first considering changing the status quo, all the way through to when they are signing a contract and beyond, when they're a client, right? What type of content, what type of channels are they going to, marketing channels are they going to consume that content? And so organizations that we work with will line up their content to say, this type of content, could be, information that is more industry centric and more business value centric, might be something that might help organizations understand things at the start of their buyer journey, whereas more product oriented feature value content might be more middle of the buyer journey, where they're doing technical evaluation, they're doing business evaluation of certain solutions. So we know certain content appeals at different stages of the buyer journey, and marketing technology now enables us to read that, a given individual is engaging on your website or through your social channels or through email or at events or in webinars with that content. And we're able to triangulate that data with all the other data that we see an individual engaging with. And, at that point, get a relatively clear picture of where they may be at in their buyer journey, and then serve them up content that nurtures them, like content that is contextual to that stage in the buyer journey to nurture and drive better conversion, faster conversion, lower the cost of customer acquisition, and improve the buyer experience, right? Much like on Netflix or Amazon, when we get served content that is more relevant to us based on the behavioral signals we're giving off, we tend to have a better experience.
I want to walk through a couple examples so people can kind of get an idea. And you worked with a company, Rapid7. What did you do with them?
Yeah, we worked with Rapid7 really on a lot of their nurture strategies. So, looking at the people that were coming into the top of their sales funnel and really trying to drive better conversion throughout the buyer journey through contextual, relevant communication that was tuned to who are they. Rapid7 is a security software vendor. And they deal with a lot of security personas, from chief information security officers to security analysts, different roles that get involved in different stages of the buyer journey. And so what we really strove to do with Rapid7 was look at, who was engaging, what stage might they be in their buyer journey, and then how do we build nurture strategies that help drive that conversion and drive down the cost of customer acquisition, drive up the amount of influence that marketing is having. The other thing I haven't touched on, which certainly has become much more prevalent over the 27 years that I've been in B2B marketing now, is the B2B buyer is much more in control than they were. When I first started my career, B2B sales really managed the buyer experience to a large degree, right? They got most of their information from sales. And, those tables have changed dramatically in B2B, and consider purchases in B2C, right? The last time you bought a car, I'm sure your experience in buying a car and where you went to for information was dramatically different from probably when you were a little bit younger, right? Where you would use the internet now for much of your information gathering, for much of your purchase consideration. And you probably pick up, you go in to test drive the car and negotiate with, with the sales rep at the dealership. It's much the same in B2B today, where marketing and sales are much more interdependent. And the buyer is really in control, going back and forth between marketing channels and sales channels. So, all that for a company like Rapid7, they were looking, and many of our organizations, the relationship between marketing and sales is in a state of transformation, where marketing is much more involved in all stages of the buyer journey. So it's about really kind of pivoting the way that marketing and sales works to be much more interdependent.
Let's take, I want to know about, I know you work with a lot of CMOs and some of the questions they have, but let's take, this as an example, with Rapid7. And when they first walk me through, when they first start working with you, what are some of the things that you do to identify what, the steps are that you need to take?
Yeah. Well, we really want to understand first and foremost who are your buyers, right? So a lot of what we do is informed by buyer journey and persona research, really trying to understand who's your ideal client profile, who's in the qualified buying group that you sell into, what are the roles that different personas play, and what are the content and channels that they engage with throughout the buyer journey. That really forms a blueprint for engagement strategies, right? We really don't want to create stuff that is ill-informed, that is something that I think historically a lot of marketing organizations, absent of data, had to do, which is go off assumption and gut instinct. We really want to use first party and tertiary research and data to inform, what are your key target personas engaging with, and where are they going to engage with that content. And that really creates the blueprint, as it did for Rapid7 and as it does for all our clients, to better understand. And some organizations have that data and that buyer journey research already done, and it's great, and we can leverage it and just work from there. In others, we create it for them. And where there's a gap, we'll go in and we'll interview customers, we'll do focus groups, we'll look at data, we'll do online surveys, and we'll really try and understand the stages in a complex. Our clients are B2B. Most of them have a 2 to 3 to 12 to 24 month sales cycle. There's a lot of touches. There's a lot of engagement. There's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of content. And so we really try and identify what the sequencing of those touch points should look like through data.
Mark, I see, I don't know what the percentage is of people like, yeah, Mark, we have the buyer journey all mapped out, to we don't. I would guess it's 90-10, but I could be wrong. But I'm wondering, they're like, Mark, we have a lot of great personas, right? They come to you and they don't have a specific ideal mapped out, and you have to go in and actually do the research. Do you remember a time where the research maybe surprised the client? Like, oh, we have these, anyone with a lot of money or what, I don't know, whatever it is, there's these 10 personas. I don't really think we have a 1 or 2. And then you went in and dove into the actual surveys and research and talked to them, and it was pretty clear.
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say that a relatively significant portion of the research we do does create surprises for clients. In that, they'll work with their sales team, and they'll get a reasonable insight from their sales team of the engagement from clients with the sales team. The challenge is what the sales team sees is a little bit like the iceberg these days, right? In the days where buyers are engaging mostly in a very independent manner, through website, social channels, and third-party websites, sales doesn't see much of the buyer journey. So a lot of it is a surprise, and that is the portion of the iceberg that the organization doesn't necessarily have visibility into.
Talk about I know you work at financial services companies. What's an example there and what you did with them?
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of financial services companies. We have for a long time, organizations like BNY Mellon, Fidelity, Putnam, DTCC, MUFG. Financial services has been a fun industry to work in that, not surprisingly, if we look at the industries that we work in, technology has been ahead of the pack for years in terms of, more innovative B2B marketing strategies and the use of technology. Financial services and other, more heavily governed and compliance-led organizations have trailed, but financial services, going back, I'd say a couple of years before the pandemic, and then certainly through the pandemic, really accelerated the pace of their digital adoption and really realized that they needed to drive more investment in digital adoption. And also there was a dynamic. We primarily work on the wealth management side of financial services. And if you think about wealth management, if you think about your own investments, the industry largely up until relatively recently was dominated by sales channels. It was typically older sales reps working with older advisors, and they very much valued a high touch, face to face type of relationship. Probably the stereotype you would think of financial services, right? Lunches, maybe some golfing, right? And what we've seen in wealth management is there's been a huge change. First of all, digital adoption has become much more prominent. Secondly, there's been a real change in the demographics of the wealth management industry. So, the more established baby boomer advisors are turning over to people who are entering wealth management as a second career. To younger people, they're turning over their books of business to younger people. It's becoming more female. It's becoming more ethnically diverse as an industry. And it's, as a result, becoming much more digital. So organizations like a Fidelity, like a Putnam, like a BNY Mellon have had to look at, okay, historically, the way that we've engaged with retirement investment advisors and brokers and dealers has largely been through sales channels, face-to-face relationships. And now they're demanding a much more digital-centric relationship. So we've really worked with them to transform their marketing organizations to become much more digital-centric, to develop much more content at scale that engages and informs and tries to drive greater activation of the 350,000 investment advisors and brokers and dealers to do business and sell the funds, the ETFs, the mutual funds, the variety of investment vehicles that our clients are offering.
How do you help these companies get content out when you could speak to it? It tends to be a highly regulated field, and they may be combing through. They can't move as quickly maybe as some other industries. I don't know if that's true or not, but it seems to be. How do you get them to get content out when there's maybe balancing that with the regulation stuff?
Yeah, it's just, I think the timeline and the horizon to execute just becomes longer. I'd say at the end of the day, the ability to get content out is not dramatically impacted by financial services organizations, but the timeline is. So it's, longer planning cycles, trying to balance the reality of being in a compliance-driven organization with the need to be reactive to the market as well and to be relatively agile, right? So we try and work on business processes and the operating model for planning and balancing, breaking down some barriers internally that can lead to greater agility. It is more challenging, but I think, it comes back to, first of all, really understanding who your buyer is. So you're developing a content plan that maps to the reality of what your buyers or your investment advisors, your brokers and dealers are looking for. And so you're hitting the mark with the type of content, and then it's just about going through the cycles internally to get sign off on compliance.
What are questions? I know you work with a lot of CMOs. What are some of the common questions they're asking you?
Well, right now it's a really interesting time in B2B marketing for a number of reasons. One is AI. Tons of questions around AI in 2023. I look at AI, and from all the work we've done with organizations, I look at it on two levels, Jeremy. One is tactical use of AI within existing technology platforms and applications that marketers are using today. Applications like Salesforce, like Marketo from Adobe, platforms like 6sense from an intent data perspective. There is AI built into these technologies that many marketers are using today. I call it relatively tactical use of AI. It's not tremendously transformative. It's helping to create some greater efficiencies. Then there's strategic use of AI. And I think in that area, CMOs today have more questions than answers. They're looking for insight and guidance on how can AI change our operating model when we think about our people, our processes, and our technology. What does the future look like with AI? How can it enable us to get more efficient, more productive, what does it mean in terms of the future of work, right? What roles today might be better suited? If you think about some of the future of work experts that I've listened to have talked about really three classes of employment, if you will. One is full-time workers, right? The Roman army model that we've all grown up on and we're used to. The gig model, right? Applying that to white collar work. And then the AI driven model, which is, what work is better suited by technology and AI. And so they're really, I think, wrestling with that and really trying to understand strategically long-term how the three play within their organization.
So AI is a big one. What's another topic or question that's coming up frequently when you're talking to CMOs?
Well, another big one is really what I touched on earlier, the use of analytics and how that and data and how that has transformed B2B marketing. We're now at an inflection point in that organizations like Google and others are deprecating the use of third-party cookies. And Google they've pushed the end zone back in terms of the dates a couple of times, but right now they're stating that by the end of 2024, they're going to deprecate 100% use of third-party cookies on the Chrome browser. And a lot of the marketing, the 15,000 marketing technology applications and platforms today rely on third-party cookies to gather data to drive personalization at scale. So there's a lot of
So you lose a lot of tracking.
Yeah, exactly. We lose a lot of tracking. Now there's first-party data that organizations are advocating for. There's better content, that organizations are advocating for, but historically, I think the gains we've made in personalization, we're going to give back a lot of that because of privacy concerns. And a lot of it is the rightful concerns. So I think marketers need to recalibrate, what they gather information on, how they approach the relationship with personalization at scale in organizations, and how they think about their content and engagement moving forward. And that's a big question that CMOs have on their mind. And it's something that we're doing a fair amount of advisory on.
Yeah. So how do you combat that? I mean, what I think about, basically people are just going to have to drive whatever the call to action to collect their own data. I don't know if that's the solution, but how do you combat, okay, we can no longer track this just by them clicking on it.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I mean, ultimately, what I like about where we're headed is the better marketers, I think, will thrive. The ones creating better content, providing more value in the market, people will still go to, right? If you create value for others and, what you say and what you do, helps them, I think your engagement will be just fine. Right? There are ways that you can still continue to understand people's preferences, asking them, what type of information are you interested in? Engaging with people and really understanding them through your CRM, people who are in an active buying cycle, through data that you've captured firsthand, you can still personalize off of. So I think there's still going to be opportunities for personalization. A lot of it, I think, will be more explicit than today. We'll have to get better at asking and creating preferences based on truly engaging and having a dialogue with people rather than mining data. But it still comes back to, if you have really good things to say and you're adding value through your content, then you'll stand out in the market for good reasons.
I want to go back, mention, Mark, stepping out on the ledge for a second when you started your company, because it is stepping out on the ledge. Do you remember the first key client that you got when you started Demand Spring?
Yeah, I was fortunate in that I had taken the time to build a business plan for Demand Spring starting a year out from, I had planned my exit from IBM, and I knew that it was an itch that I wanted to scratch, to be an entrepreneur and start something myself. And so I'd done a fair amount of planning, and I'd spent the year leading up to it having great coffee conversations with people, or virtual coffee conversations, and getting input. And so when I left IBM, immediately I had two first clients. One was the geographical information systems company Esri, in Redlands, California. And the second was the email marketing platform vendor Constant Contact in Boston or Waltham, Mass. And they were two great clients. They were indicative of how many of our clients through our first 11 years have been found, which is through relationships. My accountant, I remember about a year into DemandSpring, Jeremy said to me, when it looked like DemandSpring would be a viable entity and I could continue to feed my family and we could continue to live in our house and we were starting to grow the company, said, what you did is what many people don't realize when they work for a company, which is the unrealized value of their network. And when you step out and you step off the ledge and you start something like you did, you realize the value of your network. And that's still true to this day. Many of our clients come through relationships, be it personal networks, be it, clients who refer us to others or individuals within clients who move to other organizations and take us with them.
You mentioned about, I wanted to make sure that we kept living in our house, right? What was the family conversation that you had when you went to your family and said, okay,
yeah,
I'm going to go out and do this? Because, you work for a big corporation. There's a lot of great things. Yeah. There's health insurance, there's all those things. So what was that conversation like with the family?
I'm super fortunate. My wife was very supportive. I think she realized that it was an important thing for me, and she was nothing but supportive, which made it so much easier. Right. And we had a plan. I think we knew financially that, there was a timeline where we could try this and we had a plan. And I'm so lucky to have her behind me and supporting it. And I think that's just essential for all entrepreneurs, right? Is have that conversation, do the diligence to understand the impact, and then have the conversation, make sure you've got obviously a supportive family behind you. I think my mom was more scared than anybody else, but it worked out.
No, I love what you said about that, which is, first of all, you spent a year planning this. It wasn't like, I think I'm going to open my own thing. You actually had the conversation. Sound like you had some clients already. So even though from the outside, it may seem like, he took this big leap when he's been in IBM and some of these other big companies, it really, you had planned it out. You had clients lined up, you had the business lined up, and you hedged your bets as far as that goes. What were the initial, how do you decide on pricing? You're launching this into the world. How do you decide on pricing?
Excellent question. I think there's two answers to that. One is having been a client of like services on the other side, up until the time I launched it, I had a reasonable expectation of what clients were willing to pay for services. Right. And then you balance that with obviously looking at the costs within the business and, profit margin desired. Right. And then the other part, quite frankly, is trial, right? You're also at the same time trialing the value that, as much as I knew how much I paid for certain services in the market, what would people pay for my services? And, what would they be willing to assign value to? It's always been, I think, within our organization, a combination of the market's ability to recognize value with obviously reconciling that with the cost within the business.
Talk about the evolution of the team, right? In the beginning, it's your idea, it's you. What does the evolution of the team look like over time?
A great question. So I started it on my own, aligned myself with third-party freelancers to build a set of competencies. I knew that I didn't have all the competencies myself to satisfy the breadth of things from strategy to content to technology know-how that a demand-focused or revenue marketing consultancy, as we call ourselves now, needed. So I aligned myself with freelancers, but I always knew what was really important for me was growing a team. I wanted to have a team. I wanted to celebrate wins with others. I didn't want to be a solo consultant. I wanted to build something, build something that had value, build something that had a team around me. And so I got some really good guidance in the early days, which is hire for scarcity, right? As an example, writers are so important to what we do, but there are a lot of writers out there, right? Technologists, on the other hand, who have an aptitude and expertise in a certain marketing platform are harder to find. So those are the areas that I invested in full-time employees where I could find them to begin with, right? And then we, just grew the team from there. And today we're a team of about 40 individuals, and we do we have a combination of strategy consultants, of account executives and project managers and marketing technology consultants, as well as internal administrative folks who run our talent organization, our own marketing practices, our sales organization, and other parts of the finance.
Yeah, I like what you said there, hire for scarcity. At what point do you transition? I mentioned at the beginning, executive chair, right? So what a lot of founders want to do is replace themselves in positions along the way so they can oversee the business.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the key positions that you were able to step out of and what you did to actually step out of them.
Yeah, so I was CEO for our first 10 years, and last summer, so about 15 months ago, I made the decision to move into. Actually, I made it again about a year in advance to step up to an executive chair role and hand day-to-day responsibility for the organization over to Matt Roberts, who has a great background. Matt was first of all our client at Staples and then at Forrester Research. He was on our board of advisors, and then he joined us about 5 years ago now to lead our strategy practice. Very strategic individual, great with clients, great with our employees. I knew the business would be in good hands turning over day to day to Matt. So I did that. A little bit more balance in my life, more family time, more time for coaching basketball, and working with the young people that I do through that, and really working on the business at a strategy level as well. So now I spend my time, with Matt, guiding and governing the long-term strategy of Demand Spring, helping in different ways, mentoring people in the business, stepping in as needed in certain areas operationally, still working with some key clients and on some big deals, but really kind of looking at stepping out of the weeds, which has been so helpful in, moving away from, days of fully packed Zoom meetings back to back, to seeing the big picture and understanding, where the puck is going, and how we get there.
Can you give some, just share your experience with transitioning, because it's a big transition, right? You're CEO, then you're not. Yeah. So talk about the transition and how you transition Matt to set him up and the company up for success.
Yeah, I mean, we built the plan a year out, and we really worked the plan. Matt increasingly took on a variety of responsibilities that I was doing. We prepared the rest of our leadership team about 3 months out for the change, and then really have stayed, close to Matt. We connect once, twice a week, usually, on the biggest things in the organization. I've strived to stay out of the day-to-day as much as possible, and provide him with the opportunity to, be our CEO, while providing him with the support and the service he needs to be successful. And then, working and partnering with him on the long-term guidance of the company. So that's on a professional level. I think it's still, I would say that, it's the first time that I've made that transition. So, the learning curve was something that we went through, and, still even going through. But I think it comes down to communication. Matt is a great partner, in terms of being open and candid and transparent and supportive of my role in the organization, and vice versa. So it's open dialogue. And then, on the personal side, there's also a transition as well when you step away, right? And how you work through that personally. And I'm fortunate in that, I didn't step away into a lazy boy, recliner. Very, very busy with all the other aspects going on in my life. And so I feel like I've got the right balance, and the right focus on the business, right focus on other things that are important to me right now.
So Mark, what great feedback have you gotten from Matt in this transition? Because I can imagine thinking you've been doing this for over a decade.
Yeah.
It's not so easy just to go, okay, like I'm gone. I'm just going to check in once or twice a week. was there feedback he was giving you to help you, like personally and professionally, with the transition?
Yeah. I think the best feedback he's given me is just identifying where he wants my support and my help. I haven't been shy to be hands-on. I've strived to step back. Now, I don't know that I've always succeeded in that. But Matt has been great in saying, I really need a thought partner in this area of the business right now, be it talent decisions, be it strategy decisions, operational decisions. So just his candor and his transparency in terms of where he's needed me has given me permission to step in and really be a partner to him without worrying that I'm stepping on toes or mitigating his leadership in the organization.
It seems like also you've put a bunch of mentors and advisors in place with the company throughout the years. Can you talk about some of those key roles and people that have helped?
Yeah. Good research on your part. We have had a board of advisors, Jeremy, for about 7 or 8 years. So, I think one of the things that has really defined Demand Spring, and we've used it really successfully, not only to position ourselves in sales opportunities, but I think just to make a difference in clients, is that we're not a team of lifelong consultants. We come from the client side. We've walked many miles in your shoes. So we understand the need for quick wins and long-term success. But the downside in that is, we have learned how to run a consulting organization as we've gone. And so we've really benefited from having advisors that have a variety of experience. We're now in the second generation of our board of advisors. We had a great first generation comprised of former CMOs and partner in our accounting firm and people who've run services businesses and a variety of other backgrounds. And now our second iteration, we've filled in some other gaps in the organization we have now. We have a person who's the chief people officer at QuickBase and formerly Forrester. We've got sales leaders. We have CMOs again. So we've really crowdsourced a great team. We've got founders, former CEOs. We've crowdsourced a great team of people with a diversity of skills that provide us with the guidance and governance that just fills in some of our blind spots and gaps. And it's been super valuable for us, both on a big strategic level, as well as just small conversations that we'll have. We'll reach out, Matt or myself will reach out to various people. One advisor, for example, Doug Buescher, former CMO of Salesforce and the CEO of LeadSpace, former CMO of Skype as well. Just a wealth of knowledge, information. Carol Myers is another one. Carol was the former CMO who took about 4 companies public, LogMeIn, Rapid7, Unica, and WorkHuman, for example. David Pratt's another one who ran SAP's global services operations organization and worked with me at IBM and Cognos. Dave Laverty, former CMO of IBM Business Analytics. These people have so much experience and provide us with so much great guidance that they've just been invaluable to us in running the company.
Mark, thanks for sharing that. I'm curious. I mean, these people are super busy, right? They could be doing anything, but they're on your board of advisors. Talk about the format. What are they committing to when they go, okay, Mark, if you're like, yeah, we have to meet every day for the year, they're like, I'm out, right? So what's a format that you bring to the table when you're like, okay, we'd like to be, you to be on the board of advisors. Here's your commitment that we want.
Yeah, we meet once a quarter and we give them within that meeting, we give them an update on the business. But we really, because it's a board of advisors, not a board of directors, we really lean on advisory. So we try to make much of it about advisory. And, we'll present 1 or 2 key issues or opportunities within the business and really get their insights on how we approach it. And then that's what they commit to formally. And then they've been great with their time in terms of, getting involved in, either 30-minute coffee conversations on a challenge or opportunity, one-on-one, or even getting involved in certain projects. And we'll compensate them for their time when they get involved, certainly in those, right? But they've helped us advisory-wise and even operationally in terms of getting involved. The other thing they've done is many of these people with great backgrounds have become part of our advisory team for clients, and they've helped deliver client solutions to our clients and gotten involved, be it, Carol Myers helping clients on product-led growth strategies, or, people who have gotten involved in sales and marketing alignment, or other types of advisory, AI advisory, for example. So they've been great, not only for us, but we've been able to really extend them out to our clients, and our clients have seen value from their involvement as well.
So Mark, I could see, I'm wondering again, what makes it attractive? What can someone's thinking of? I would like to put together a board of advisors, let's say someone says that. How do they make it attractive to these people? Because do they really need money right at this point? What are some of the things that you thought about, or that other people can think about, to make it attractive to these busy people that could be doing anything?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, speaking from our experience, it's, first of all, the strength and credibility of the company is something they look for, right? Is this a company that I'm going to, am I wasting my time, or can I help grow something that I see the potential opportunity for growth? So overall viability, strength of the company, strength of the leadership team, I think is certainly important. I think value system needs to align as well. What's the value? What's the reputation of the company? What are the values and the reputation of the company? And do they align with my values? And will they, enhance or potentially mitigate my reputation? And then, I think you've got to look at alignment of the types of advisors as well. As much as we look to say, okay, can this person help us when it comes to talent advisory or sales advisory or running a services business? These people will look and say, well, how much value can I bring to this organization? Is there a good alignment for me as well? So that, I think, works both ways.
And then I don't know, do people typically give any equity with this type of scenario, or is it more just a pay per meeting?
Certainly can be equity. It can be, there's all kinds of compensation strategies out there, from equity to, fixed rate on an annual basis, and then time and materials for additional time spent.
Got it. First of all, Mark, I want to thank you. I have one last question before I ask it. I want to point people to Demand Spring. Check it out, and check out more episodes of the podcast. My last question is about basketball. Okay. Talk about coaching for a second, and maybe the most memorable game that you coached, because I'm sure it all applies back to the leadership and all the stuff you've been working on in business over the years.
Yeah. First of all, I love the sport. More importantly, I love working with young people. I think that's really become a huge passion in my life, is helping to grow and develop young. I work with female athletes. So I coach one of the better teams in the province of Ontario, U16 Girls. Got just a great group of girls. I'm also coaching a U14 team this year as well. So I definitely have my hands full, but seeing them come in the gym, and I think female athletics has come so far in terms of the growth and the recognition of it. Seeing these young women come into the gym and play the way they can is just amazing. It's great to see. I love it. I love to see what it does for their self-esteem, for their self-confidence, for the relationships they're building, the leadership opportunities they're getting, what they're learning about how to work as part of a team, and what they can take from that and pour into their lives today and in the future. What it will do for them is just amazing, right? The financial paycheck from coaching basketball is quite small. The emotional paycheck is massive, and it truly, I feel like what I get out of that is really defining in my life, quite honestly. And what I'm giving to them is just, I like to think it's having a really big impact, and one of the biggest impacts that my life is having on others. So absolutely love it. Love being in the gym. It's my happy place. And I love the sport, and I love the strategy of the sport as well. It's a great sport. In terms of best games, I'd say there's a couple that stand out, Jeremy. One is we We won the provincial championship at our level in U14. Now, this was a little bit lower division. It was competitive basketball, but a little bit lower division. But nonetheless, when you win a provincial championship, it's amazing. We scored the winning basket with 7 seconds left. This was two years ago off a baseline out of bounds play. We had been winning the entire game. The other team came back and they took the lead for the first time with about 1:20 left in the game. And, I think my hair was turning gray in real time at this point. The level of stress in coaching is, although my focus is more on development of the person, there's a level of competitiveness that also comes out. Anyways, we went back and forth for the last minute and we finally scored the winning basket with 7 seconds left. And it was amazing. The girls just celebrated like there was no tomorrow. And then I coached at the Ontario Summer Games, which is provincial level a couple of years ago. And coaching in that, seeing best athletes from across the province at that age, it was truly amazing being part of that. It was an Olympic-like experience where there's opening ceremonies, athletes march in. And so seeing these, it was for U14 girls. So seeing 13-year-old girls, marching in and just having an amazing experience, both on and off the court, living in an Olympic-style village was a great experience. So those would be my two highlights.
Amazing. I love it. I just want to be the first one to thank you. I want to give a shout out to Corinne Million. It makes me think of this, Mark, because she actually pairs athletes, collegiate athletes, and I'm not sure, maybe high school athletes too, with companies for paid internships. So she kind of pairs them up with companies like Wilson and ESPN and other places. So maybe I got to connect the two of you because she does amazing work. Amazing. But everyone, thank you very much. Mark, we'll see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jeremy.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I'm feeling like 100 grand.